Today I'm going to be looking at some of the claims made regarding the Challenger 86 disaster. That is, some of the astronauts are supposedly still alive to this day, and that they weren't on the actual space shuttle that blew up, and that they're living day-to-day lives doing normal jobs. And one of the characters is a lady called Judith Resnick. We've got the Judith Resnick NASA astronaut here on our screen. And there's some claims made that Yale professor Judith Resnick is the very same person as the astronaut Judith Resnick, who supposedly was on the 86 Challenger disaster. So I'm going to look at some photographs, do a comparison, and watch two clips, videos, and just do a voice comparison as well. I'm not going to make any claims myself. I'm just going to look at some photography, the evidence, and listen to two clips and compare the voices. And I'll let you decide. But I do find the evidence and the stuff we're going to look at incredibly interesting and I think quite revealing. So let's have a look. Now this is a fairly recent image of Judith Resnick, Yale professor. And here's a compilation where I blended the astronaut with the Yale professor. So let's just have a look as these two images are blended together. Obviously there's a good couple of, well, it's probably over 20 years time difference between the two images. But there is a definite similarity there. The nose being one of them. And the features as well, quite similar. Eyebrows slightly different. Again, I'm not making any claims other than noting that they do look quite similar. Of course, there is an age gap between the two images. But yeah. Again, come to your own conclusions there. This is the astronaut, Judith Resnick, back in 86. And this is Judith Resnick, the Yale professor, about 10 years, maybe 15 years ago. Interesting. This is Judith Resnick, the Yale professor in more recent years. A couple of images. There's Judith Resnick, the astronaut from back in the day. Of course, the images we've seen. And a couple of comparison images. Obviously, it's an unusual name in itself. And the features are very similar, I have to say. Very similar. Again, another comparison. And now let's look at some voice comparisons. One clip of the astronaut at the start, followed by a clip of the professor. And I have to say, they do sound incredibly similar. I'll play it a couple of times, it'll play on loop. Again, come to your own conclusions here.
Well, I too am glad to be here one more time, and I am hoping that the affliction that Steve Hawley had from the 41D mission specialist of the delays hasn't rubbed off on me, and I think the guys behind me are hoping that it hasn't also. So I live in New Haven, Connecticut, and therefore, since state courts are the central facet of adjudication in the United States, wanted to start with a 1784 courthouse in New London, Connecticut, that is still operating today. Well, I too am glad to be here one more time, and I am hoping that the affliction that Steve Hawley had from the 41D mission specialist of the delays hasn't rubbed off on me, and I think the guys behind me are hoping that it hasn't also. So I live in New Haven, Connecticut, and therefore, since state courts are the central facet of adjudication in the United States, wanted to start with a 1784 court.
Well, having looked at some photographs and done a comparison, and listened to your voices, Judith Resnick, the professor, Judith Resnick, the astronaut, side by side. There's a hell of a lot of similarities. So I've got to ask, is that you, Judith?